regrowth, listen carefully because the problem is not always your genes. In many cases, it's inflammation, nutrient deficiency, poor circulation, or hormone imbalance at the scalp level. And here's the interesting part: what you apply to your scalp can be just as important as what you eat. Today, I want to walk you through 4 powerful oils that can help reactivate hair growth naturally by supporting the scalp, feeding the follicles, and reducing the root causes of hair loss. Castor oil works at a very deep biological level when it comes to supporting hair regrowth, and that's what makes it so powerful. One of the biggest hidden reasons hair stops growing is reduced blood flow to the scalp. Hair follicles are extremely active structures, and they demand a constant supply of oxygen, amino acids, minerals, and trace nutrients. When circulation slows down, even slightly, the follicle shifts into a resting phase. Castor oil helps address this exact issue by naturally enhancing circulation at the scalp, allowing dormant follicles to receive the nutrients they've been missing for years. What makes castor oil unique is its high concentration of ricinoleic acid. This fatty acid has a strong influence on prostaglandin balance in the skin. Prostaglandins regulate inflammation and blood vessel behavior. When inflammation stays high around the follicle, hair growth signals are suppressed. Castor oil helps calm that inflammatory response, which creates a healthier environment for follicles to switch back into the growth phase. Many people don't realize that hair loss is often not about losing follicles, it's about follicles being stuck in the wrong phase. Another important factor is scalp tension. Chronic stress, poor posture, and even jaw tension can reduce blood flow to the scalp over time. Castor oil, when massaged into the scalp, helps relax the tissue layers underneath the skin. This mechanical stimulation, combined with the oil's biochemical effects, can dramatically improve nutrient delivery. That's one reason people often notice their scalp feeling warmer after application. This is a sign of improved circulation, which is exactly what you want if hair growth has slowed. Castor oil also plays a role in maintaining proper moisture balance at the scalp. A dry, tight scalp can restrict follicle expansion, making it harder for new hair to push through the surface. On the other hand, an overly oily scalp can clog follicles. Castor oil helps regulate this balance by supporting the skin barrier, allowing follicles to remain open and functional without irritation. This is especially important for people who experience flaking, itching, or scalp sensitivity along with hair thinning. There's also an antimicrobial aspect that's often overlooked. The scalp has its own microbiome, and when that balance is disrupted, low-grade infections or fungal overgrowth can interfere with hair growth. Castor oil has natural antimicrobial properties that help keep the scalp environment clean without stripping it or causing chemical stress. This creates a stable foundation where follicles can operate normally instead of being constantly attacked. What's fascinating is that castor oil doesn't just work on the surface. It supports the deeper layers of the scalp where follicles are anchored. Strong anchoring is essential because weak follicles shed hair more easily, even if new hair is trying to grow. By improving tissue health around the follicle, castor oil helps hair stay in place longer, reducing excessive shedding while supporting new growth. Consistency is where most people fail. Using castor oil once or twice won't change much. Hair follicles operate on long biological cycles. When castor oil is applied consistently over time, it continuously reinforces circulation, reduces inflammation, and supports follicle strength. This creates a cumulative effect where the scalp environment gradually shifts from hostile to supportive. That's when people start noticing thicker texture, reduced shedding, and small regrowth in thinning areas. The most important thing to understand is that castor oil doesn't force hair to grow. Instead, it removes the obstacles that stopped growth in the first place. When circulation improves, inflammation drops, and the scalp becomes healthier, hair growth becomes a natural outcome rather than a struggle. Coconut oil supports hair growth by addressing one of the most overlooked problems in hair loss, structural weakness at the root level. Hair is composed primarily of keratin, a protein that requires protection to remain strong and anchored. When the scalp environment becomes hostile due to dryness, inflammation, or chemical exposure, hair strands lose protein faster than they can rebuild it. Coconut oil has a unique molecular structure that allows it to penetrate the hair shaft rather than simply coating the surface, helping reduce protein loss where it matters most. One of the reasons many people experience gradual thinning rather than sudden hair loss is microscopic damage accumulating over time. Daily washing, heat styling, environmental toxins, and even hard water slowly weaken the hair cuticle. Coconut oil acts as a protective barrier while still allowing the hair to breathe. By reinforcing the hair shaft internally, coconut oil helps strands become more resistant to breakage, which often gets mistaken for hair loss when, in reality, the hair is snapping before it can grow longer. The scalp itself also benefits significantly from coconut oil. A healthy follicle requires a stable moisture balance. When the scalp becomes dry, tight, or irritated, follicles struggle to maintain their normal growth cycle. Coconut oil helps restore lipid balance in the skin, preventing excessive water loss while calming irritation. This creates an environment where follicles are less stressed and more capable of sustaining active growth over time. Another critical aspect is microbial balance. The scalp hosts a complex ecosystem of bacteria and yeast. When this balance is disrupted, it can lead to itching, flaking, inflammation, and follicle dysfunction. Coconut oil contains natural fatty acids, including lauric acid, which have antimicrobial properties. This helps control unwanted microbial overgrowth without damaging the scalp's protective barrier. A calmer, cleaner scalp sends fewer stress signals to hair follicles, allowing them to remain in the growth phase longer. Coconut oil also plays a role in reducing oxidative stress. Free radical damage at the scalp level accelerates follicle aging and shortens the lifespan of hair strands. The antioxidants present in coconut oil help neutralize this damage, protecting both the scalp tissue and the follicle structure. Over time, this protection can make a noticeable difference in hair texture, shine, and resilience, especially in individuals exposed to chronic stress or environmental pollutants. There's also a mechanical benefit that often goes unnoticed. When coconut oil is gently massaged into the scalp, it improves blood flow to the superficial layers of skin. Hair follicles rely on this circulation to deliver amino acids, minerals, and oxygen. Even a modest improvement in blood flow can significantly enhance follicle performance. This is why many people notice a healthier scalp appearance long before visible hair changes begin. Coconut oil is particularly valuable for individuals dealing with hair damage from dietary imbalances, low protein intake, poor fat absorption, or deficiencies in fat-soluble vitamins can weaken hair structure. By externally supporting the hair shaft and scalp lipids, coconut oil helps compensate while internal nutrition is being corrected. This dual support often leads to reduced shedding and improved thickness over time. What makes coconut oil especially effective is its compatibility with the scalp. Unlike many synthetic products, it does not trigger an inflammatory response when used correctly. Instead, it integrates into the skin's natural lipid layer, reinforcing it rather than disrupting it. This makes it suitable for long-term use without creating dependency or rebound effects. When applied consistently, coconut oil helps shift the scalp from a state of chronic irritation to one of stability and protection. Hair follicles respond to this change by conserving energy, strengthening their anchor, and maintaining longer growth cycles. As the scalp environment improves, hair has the opportunity to grow stronger, thicker, and more resilient without being constantly pushed into shedding or breakage. Rosemary oil influences hair growth by directly affecting circulation, cellular signaling, and follicle activity at the scalp level. Hair follicles require a steady and efficient blood supply to remain active, yet reduced microcirculation is one of the earliest changes seen in thinning hair. When blood flow decreases, follicles receive fewer nutrients and less oxygen, which gradually pushes them into a dormant state. Rosemary oil helps counter this process by stimulating blood flow in the tiny capillaries that surround each follicle, improving delivery of the raw materials needed for growth. What makes rosemary oil particularly interesting is its effect on the hair growth cycle itself. Hair does not grow continuously. It moves through phases of growth, rest, and shedding. Stress, inflammation, and hormonal signals can prematurely push follicles out of the growth phase. Rosemary oil has been shown to support a longer active phase by reducing oxidative stress and calming inflammatory signals that disrupt normal cycling. When these stress signals are lowered, follicles are more likely to stay productive instead of shutting down early. Another important mechanism involves nerve signaling in the scalp. The scalp is rich in nerve endings that influence blood vessel constriction and relaxation. Chronic stress can cause persistent tightening of these vessels, limiting nutrient delivery. Rosemary oil helps relax this tension, improving vascular response and creating a more favorable environment for follicle activity. This is one reason people often feel a mild warming or tingling sensation after application, which reflects increased circulation rather than irritation. Rosemary oil also supports hair growth by influencing certain enzymes linked to hair thinning. Excessive activity of these enzymes can interfere with follicle signaling and reduce hair density over time. By modulating these pathways, rosemary oil helps preserve normal follicle communication, allowing hair to grow according to its natural rhythm. This effect is especially relevant for individuals experiencing gradual thinning rather than sudden hair loss. Scalp inflammation plays a major role in preventing hair regrowth. Even when follicles are still alive, low-grade chronic inflammation tightens tissue around the follicle, restricting expansion and weakening the hair shaft as it emerges. Rosemary oil contains compounds with anti-inflammatory properties that help calm this response. As inflammation decreases, the surrounding tissue becomes more flexible, giving hair strands the space they need to grow thicker and stronger. Another often overlooked factor is oxidative damage at the follicle level. Free radicals damage cellular structures within the follicle, accelerating aging and reducing growth capacity. Rosemary oil contains antioxidants that help neutralize these free radicals, protecting follicle cells from long-term damage. This protective effect becomes increasingly important with age, environmental exposure, and prolonged stress, all of which accelerate oxidative wear on the scalp. Rosemary oil also contributes to maintaining a balanced scalp microbiome. Disruptions in microbial balance can lead to irritation, flaking, and follicle stress. Rather than stripping the scalp, rosemary oil helps maintain equilibrium, reducing conditions that silently interfere with hair growth. A stable scalp environment allows follicles to operate without constant immune interference, which is essential for sustained regrowth. The psychological aspect should not be ignored. Scalp massage with rosemary oil encourages regular engagement with scalp care, improving awareness and consistency. Consistent stimulation reinforces blood flow and nutrient delivery over time. Hair follicles respond best to repeated positive signals rather than occasional interventions. Over weeks and months, this repeated support can shift follicles from survival mode back into active production. What makes rosemary oil especially valuable is that it works with the body's natural processes rather than overriding them. It does not force follicles to grow. It restores the conditions that growth requires. When circulation improves, inflammation decreases, and oxidative stress is controlled. Follicles regain the ability to function as they were designed to. As these internal signals normalize, hair growth becomes more efficient, shedding slows, and density gradually improves in areas where follicles were previously inactive. Black seed oil works on hair growth by addressing deeper systemic and scalp level disturbances that often go unnoticed. Hair follicles are extremely sensitive to inflammation, oxidative stress, and hormonal imbalance. When any of these remain unresolved, hair growth becomes inconsistent, fragile, or completely stalled. Black seed oil, derived from Nigella sativa, has a unique ability to influence all three factors simultaneously, which is why it has been used traditionally for conditions involving tissue degeneration and chronic inflammation. One of the primary ways black seed oil supports hair regrowth is by calming inflammatory pathways at the follicle level. Chronic, low-grade inflammation tightens the tissue surrounding hair follicles, restricting blood flow and weakening the anchoring structure that holds hair in place. This leads to increased shedding and poor regrowth. Black seed oil contains thymoquinone, a compound known for its powerful anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. By reducing inflammatory signaling, the follicle environment becomes less hostile, allowing normal growth signals to resume. Hormonal disruption is another silent contributor to hair thinning. Stress hormones, insulin imbalance, and disrupted androgen signaling can all interfere with the hair cycle. Black seed oil helps modulate these responses rather than suppressing them. It supports the body's natural ability to regulate stress-related hormonal activity, which indirectly protects hair follicles from being pushed prematurely into the resting or shedding phase. When hormonal signaling becomes more stable, follicles regain consistency in growth patterns. Oxidative stress plays a major role in follicle aging. Every follicle is exposed to free radicals generated by metabolism, environmental toxins, and chronic stress. Over time, this oxidative damage weakens follicle cells, reduces energy production, and shortens the lifespan of each hair strand. Black seed oil acts as a cellular shield, neutralizing free radicals before they damage follicular structures. This protection preserves follicle vitality, especially in individuals experiencing age-related thinning. Another critical factor is immune-related scalp stress. In some individuals, the immune system mistakenly targets hair follicles, creating inflammation that disrupts growth. While black seed oil is not a medical treatment, its immune balancing properties help reduce excessive immune reactions at the scalp. This creates a calmer environment where follicles are less likely to be attacked or inflamed unnecessarily. A balanced immune response is essential for sustained hair density. Black seed oil also supports microcirculation at the scalp. Hair follicles rely on a dense network of capillaries to deliver nutrients, oxygen, and metabolic support. When circulation is compromised, follicles weaken even if nutrition is adequate. Black seed oil helps improve blood flow by reducing oxidative damage to blood vessels and supporting endothelial function. Improved circulation ensures that follicles receive the resources they need to remain active and productive. Scalp dryness and barrier dysfunction can further disrupt hair growth. A compromised skin barrier allows moisture loss, irritation, and microbial imbalance, all of which stress hair follicles. Black seed oil helps restore lipid balance in the scalp, reinforcing the skin barrier and reducing irritation. A well-functioning barrier protects follicles from environmental stressors and allows them to operate in a stable environment. Microbial imbalance is another hidden factor in hair loss. The scalp hosts a complex ecosystem of bacteria and fungi that must remain balanced for optimal follicle health. Overgrowth of certain organisms can trigger itching, inflammation, and follicle stress. Black seed oil has natural antimicrobial properties that help maintain this balance without stripping the scalp or causing chemical irritation. A stable microbiome reduces inflammatory triggers that interfere with growth cycles. Nutrient signaling is also influenced by black seed oil. Hair follicles require trace minerals, essential fatty acids, and antioxidants to maintain energy production. Black seed oil supports cellular metabolism by improving mitochondrial efficiency, which helps follicle cells generate the energy needed for continuous growth. When energy production improves, follicles are better equipped to sustain longer growth phases. Consistency amplifies the effects of black seed oil. Hair growth follows slow biological timelines, and follicles respond to repeated supportive signals rather than short-term interventions. Regular application allows cumulative reduction of inflammation, oxidative stress, and scalp tension. Over time, this repeated support shifts follicles from a defensive state into a regenerative one, where growth becomes more reliable and shedding less frequent. What makes black seed oil particularly compelling is its adaptability. It does not overstimulate follicles or force unnatural growth patterns. Instead, it restores balance where imbalance exists. When inflammation decreases, hormones stabilize, circulation improves, and oxidative damage is controlled, follicles regain the conditions they require to function properly. In that environment, hair growth is no longer something the body resists. It becomes a natural outcome of restored scalp and follicle health. The most overlooked factor in natural hair regrowth is not the oil itself, but the environment in which the hair follicle is expected to perform. Hair follicles are living, responsive structures that constantly adapt to signals coming from circulation, hormones, inflammation, and nutrient availability. When these signals are unfavorable, even the most powerful topical solutions will produce limited results. This is why consistency and addressing root causes change everything. Hair does not respond to force, it responds to conditions. One of the biggest mistakes people make is treating hair loss as an isolated scalp problem. In reality, the scalp is an extension of the body's internal state. Chronic stress, poor sleep, blood sugar instability, nutrient deficiencies, and ongoing inflammation all send signals that hair growth is not a priority. The body is always choosing survival over aesthetics. When internal stress remains high, hair follicles are instructed to conserve energy by staying dormant. No oil can override that signal, but the right combination of habits can gradually reverse it. Consistency matters because hair growth follows long biological cycles. A follicle does not react instantly to improvement. It needs repeated confirmation that conditions are safe and stable. Each time circulation improves, inflammation decreases, and the scalp barrier strengthens, the follicle receives another signal that growth is once again allowed. Over time, these signals accumulate. What looks like nothing is happening is often the follicle rebuilding its foundation before visible growth begins. Another critical factor is nutrient delivery. Oils help externally, but follicles still rely on internal nutrition to produce strong hair. Protein, zinc, iron, iodine, biotin, and fat, soluble vitamins all play roles in hair formation. If these nutrients are missing or poorly absorbed, hair strands grow thinner and weaker, regardless of topical care. Supporting digestion, improving metabolic health, and stabilizing blood sugar dramatically enhance the effectiveness of any external application. Hormonal balance also determines long-term success. Elevated stress hormones, insulin resistance, and disrupted androgen signaling interfere with the hair cycle. These hormonal signals often remain active even when scalp care improves. This is why lifestyle factors such as sleep quality, stress management, and meal timing quietly influence hair thickness. When hormones stabilize, follicles stop receiving shutdown signals and begin responding to supportive inputs again. Inflammation is another silent barrier. Many people have low-grade inflammation they don't feel, yet their follicles feel it constantly. Inflammation tightens tissue, restricts blood flow, and disrupts follicle signaling. Oils help calm this locally, but inflammation driven by diet, toxins, or chronic stress must also be addressed. As systemic inflammation decreases, scalp inflammation follows, and follicles regain flexibility and resilience. Circulation is the delivery system that connects all these factors. Without adequate blood flow, nutrients, oxygen, and hormonal signals cannot reach follicles efficiently. Regular scalp massage, physical activity, and metabolic health all enhance circulation. When circulation improves, follicles receive clearer signals and stronger support. This is why people often notice improved scalp sensation before visible regrowth appears. Patience is not optional in hair recovery. Hair follicles operate on timelines measured in months, not days. Shedding patterns often change before regrowth becomes visible. Reduced shedding is frequently the first sign that the environment has improved. Texture changes, increased strength, and slower breakage follow next. New growth appears last, often subtly, before becoming more noticeable with continued consistency. Another important element is avoiding constant disruption. Frequently, switching products, overwashing, aggressive treatments, or harsh chemicals keeps the scalp in a reactive state. Stability allows healing. When the scalp experiences consistent care without irritation, follicles stop diverting energy toward defense and begin investing in growth again. What ultimately determines success is alignment. When external care, internal nutrition, hormonal balance, circulation, and inflammation reduction are all working together, hair growth becomes a predictable outcome rather than a struggle. Oils support this process by improving the local environment, but the body must agree that growth is worth the investment. When that agreement is reached, follicles respond naturally. Hair regrowth is not about chasing quick fixes. It is about restoring biological trust. When the body senses safety, stability, and sufficient resources, it allows hair to grow again. Consistency reinforces that message every single day, and over time, follicles do exactly what they were designed to do. Hair regrowth is ultimately a reflection of how well the body perceives safety, balance, and availability of resources. Hair follicles are not passive structures. They are highly responsive sensors that react to every internal and external signal they receive. When the body detects chronic stress, inflammation, nutrient scarcity, or hormonal instability, it reallocates energy away from hair production. This is not a malfunction. It is a survival strategy. Restoring hair growth means convincing the body that conditions have shifted from survival mode to restoration mode. One of the most important realizations is that hair loss rarely happens suddenly. It develops quietly as small imbalances accumulate over time. Reduced circulation, subtle nutrient deficiencies, mild inflammation, disrupted sleep, and ongoing stress slowly change the scalp environment. By the time thinning becomes visible, follicles have already been receiving unfavorable signals for months or even years. Reversing this process requires patience and a steady reversal of those signals, not aggressive intervention. Consistency sends a powerful biological message. Each time the scalp is nourished, circulation is stimulated, inflammation is reduced, and the skin barrier is supported, follicles receive confirmation that conditions are improving. One positive signal is not enough to change follicle behavior, but repeated signals reshape the environment. Over time, follicles begin to shift out of dormancy, not because they are forced to, but because the conditions finally support growth again. Internal alignment plays an equally critical role. Hair follicles depend on a constant supply of amino acids, minerals, oxygen, and metabolic energy. Poor digestion, blood sugar swings, and insulin resistance reduce nutrient delivery even when the diet appears adequate. Stabilizing metabolism and supporting nutrient absorption dramatically improves follicle performance. When internal systems function efficiently, external care becomes far more effective. Stress regulation cannot be ignored. Chronic psychological or physiological stress elevates cortisol and other stress mediators that directly interfere with the hair cycle. These signals shorten the growth phase and accelerate shedding, improving sleep quality, managing stress, and restoring circadian rhythm send powerful messages to follicles that growth is once again allowed. Many people underestimate how strongly sleep deprivation and mental strain affect hair density. Inflammation is another deciding factor. Low-grade, persistent inflammation tightens scalp tissue, disrupts blood flow, and interferes with follicle signaling, reducing inflammatory inputs, whether from diet, environmental toxins, or chronic stress, allows scalp tissue to relax and regain flexibility. When inflammation drops, follicles are no longer constrained and hair strands can emerge thicker and stronger. Circulation acts as the delivery network that connects every aspect of hair growth. Without sufficient blood flow, even perfect nutrition and hormonal balance cannot reach the follicle. Physical movement, scalp massage, metabolic health, and proper hydration all improve circulation. When blood flow improves, follicles receive clearer signals and better support, often resulting in reduced shedding before visible regrowth appears. Another critical factor is restraint. Overtreatment, harsh chemicals, excessive washing, and constant product switching keep the scalp in a state of irritation. Hair follicles respond poorly to instability. Calm, consistent routine allows the scalp to recover and signals follicles to conserve energy for growth rather than defense. Stability creates the foundation for regeneration. Progress often appears subtle at first. Reduced hair fall, improved texture, increased shine, and stronger strands usually precede visible regrowth. These early changes indicate that follicles are repairing their internal structure and anchoring strength. New growth takes time to become noticeable, but when it appears, it tends to be more resilient and sustainable. Hair growth is not a cosmetic process. It is a biological decision made by the body. When the body senses sufficient nutrients, low stress, balanced hormones, healthy circulation, and a stable scalp environment, it permits hair production again. This decision cannot be rushed, but it can be supported consistently. When all these elements align, hair growth stops being unpredictable. Follicles respond logically to improved conditions. Shedding slows, density gradually improves, and hair becomes stronger over time. This is not about chasing rapid results. It is about restoring the conditions under which hair growth is a natural outcome rather than a struggle. Now, as we wrap up, it's important to remember that hair growth is not just about the products you apply, it's about creating the right environment for your follicles to thrive. Every follicle is highly sensitive to blood flow, nutrient supply, inflammation, and hormonal balance. When these factors are optimized consistently over time, hair naturally regains strength, density, and resilience. The oils we discussed, castor, coconut, rosemary, and black seed, each play a unique role, but they work best when the scalp and body are prepared to respond. Consistency is the key. Applying these oils regularly, nourishing your body with the right nutrients, managing stress, and supporting proper circulation sends continuous signals to your follicles. Now is the time to grow. Patience is essential because hair follows a slow biological